again, fight fans. This is Jason Burgos for Sherdog.com, and I am joined tonight by not just the defending champion, but the rare MMA millionaire. On New Year's Eve in New York City, this man will look to be the first two-time PFL featherweight world champion when he takes on the mysterious fighter to be named later, something we will get into shortly because we're still unsure about that whole thing. But that man is the party himself, Lance Palmer. Lance, Mr. Millionaire, sir, what is up? And thanks for giving me some time in the lead up to going for $2 million status.
What's going on, man?
I'm good. Now, of course, I have a whole bunch of questions for you. You know, when I talked to you last season, and also going into this year, you had one of the most honest approaches to winning the $1 million. You saw it as, great reward, but not a life changer, especially after Uncle Sam came for his share. Now, a year removed from winning that $1 million and heading into a chance to do it again. Talk to me about how that money, did better your life on some level. It can be, it could be a small scale, it bettered you. Maybe it's a long-term thing, it bettered you. Talk to me about how you used as much as you can and how it really helped better your life and why you have a unique knowledge going into this championship money on why winning that money is so important.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference in my life from that was just being able to set ourselves up for our future, whether it's investing in the long term and investing for retirement and being able to, invest into things like mortgage and stuff like that. Being able to put more money into our future was the main thing. And I mean, when it comes down to it, you have to have somebody that's smart to help you with that also. So you do have to pay less to Uncle Sam, like you were saying a second ago. So a lot of that is stuff that, I didn't come from money. So I had, multiple people helping me in different areas of that to where my money's making money for me. And, the people that you see that are multi-billionaires nowadays are all people that have multiple revenue streams, and a lot of it's residual income as well. So that's really where the money is at nowadays, whether it's in real estate or whether you're doing it elsewhere. And that's kind of what I've started to learn. And now that I have a little bit of liquid income to be able to do that investing, it's been fun. It's been a learning process. I'm always somebody that's willing to learn new things, and obviously, I love the idea of being able to invest in my future and stuff like that. It definitely builds equity and it builds a future for not only me and my family, but also, my children in the future, and college funds and stuff like that is all things that you don't really think about until you get to the point where you're like, oh, damn, it's too late. Now I already have kids. And so luckily we don't have kids yet, but that's something that we're starting to plan for now. And financially, that's helped us out a little bit there, being able to put a little bit of money away to start that. And, hopefully the end of this year, we'll be able to put more money away for that.
Very nice. Now, you are one of just 3 guys who will be returning to the finals, and only you and Natan Schultz are, guys that have a chance to repeat as champions. As we saw in year two with a bunch of guys missing weight, and especially in the playoffs with key injuries, changing matchups up in advance and on the fly. The PFL season, it isn't easy. It's a hard, road to take. How helpful was it for you having been through a championship year already? Were there any adjustments you made this season that were made directly from things you learned from going through it all last year?
The crazy thing from last year is I'm very structured and meticulous when it comes to everything. And I think that's my wrestling background, just being able to kind of know exactly how I want something done, how to go about it, basically dream it, plan it, do it, put the structure together for it. And so last year's season worked out to a T of how I planned and how I trained for the 2 fights in one night, and how I just kind of prepared each camp, and from training to recovery to doing the right thing for the entire format of it, all worked out perfectly, and everything went to, basically exact how I wanted it to go. And so this year wasn't much different for adjustments other than, adjusting my coaching staff, where, I finally was able to come out and train with Mark Henry and Frankie, Edgar, and those guys for this year. And that's something I've been wanting to do for a few years, but I wasn't able to have it accumulate until this March.
And I want to talk to you about that. I'm glad you brought up, because, you have been at least for someone who follows your, social media and stuff like that, you've been a bit of a traveling man training wise. It would seem, when I talked to you last year, you told me about how, you left Alpha Male, you worked at Extreme Couture, which surely seemed to work as you won the championship, being based out of Extreme Couture. For this season, I've seen you, like you mentioned, you've been working with guys like Frankie, Mark Henry here in, New Jersey area, but also I've seen you work with the guys at the training lab, like Juan Archuleta, Sam Calavitta. Some fighters don't like change when the formula seems successful. What made you want to change things up? Or like you said a few minutes ago, what made you always want to train there, and why do it now when things seem to work so well for you doing it out of Extreme Couture last season?
I think the main difference was seeing how Mark works so well with a guy like Frankie. They've been together 15 years, and a guy who has a wrestling background, who's basically turned himself into one of the most well-rounded mixed martial artists I've ever seen in the game. And that's more of what interested me in it. Was my wrestling pedigree is already there. My ground game is great, but Ricardo Almeida was a guy who was a great jiu-jitsu artist, got into the UFC. He's done it at the highest level. He can teach MMA grappling, which is very hard for some people to do, and as well as Coach Casey Halstead in Las Vegas, who I still use in my corner as well. So it's more of, it wasn't really that I needed a change. It was just more that I wanted to keep improving. And last year, 2018 season, Timur Valiev, who's one of my teammates now, he was in the featherweight season until he got injured right before the playoffs. So he's a guy that I train with now every day. But before, it was one of those things where I couldn't train with him because he wasn't, he was at Mark's gym, and I didn't want to step on any toes and move there. So that was the main reason I didn't go in 2018. But I brought on Coach Cal last year through the training lab for my nutrition and strength and conditioning, and just the guy's nothing short of a genius when it comes to nutrition and algorithms of peaking at the right time, the correct recovery. And there's really no secret to what he does. That he's got to be one of the best in that area. So I brought him on last year in the fall, and then so that's not really that new. We're going on our second title fight together, which is cool. And the biggest difference was Mark Henry's style of boxing for MMA is the main thing that attracted me to New Jersey.
And I've talked to several guys that have worked with Calavitta, like Sayed Awad, Juan Archuleta, Georgie Karahanyan, and when they posted too, and I'm always fascinated by Calavitta's, like that gym that he has you guys work out of, like that, not the gym, but the garage gym he has you work out of, which is so odd when you see, fighters like yourself working at these fantastic facilities, and you guys, look ripped and everything and sweating, and like it looks like the hardest training I've ever seen in my life. Like, is Calavitta's garage gym, is it just, do you look at it when you go there and do you feel like a pain in your stomach, like, oh, this is gonna be a long day, am I just fooled by the pictures, or is it really some seriously hard training in that garage?
There's nothing like training in the garage, and that's what it's made to do. It's made to basically break you and rebuild you. Wow. And that's kind of how it is from a scientific standpoint. It's like, you're smart about it. You're not going in there just beating yourself up just to do it. He has a reason for every workout we do. He has a system for, each workout we work out twice a week, and each workout has its own reason. And depending on how far you are out from a fight, everything he does is with a purpose. And that's the thing that's amazing about it. There's no guesswork to it. And that's what I wanted to do, is take the guesswork out of my training, out of my nutrition, out of my strength and conditioning. Like, everything is exactly where I need it to be. And that's why I'm happy with it.
You are in a really unique situation heading into these championships. Like I mentioned a little bit in the opening, when the playoffs were over, you were set to face Daniel Pineda. However, he was flagged for a possible PD in Nevada after a Nevada drug exam, which led to news you were instead going to face Alex Gilpin, a man you have already beaten twice this season. Then we recently found out Pineda will appeal his positive test to the Athletic Commission in Las Vegas in a couple weeks before the actual championship. First, What are your thoughts on this whole thing? And second, have you been training for both men and their various skills, or are you the type that doesn't really agonize over what your opponent can and is going to do, and you pretty much just worry about what you have to do and what you have to execute that night? So honestly, you could face the Hulk if you had to.
Yeah, I prepare for anyone. Like when I fought Almeida in the quarterfinals, that was on 24 hours notice because the other guy didn't make
Right.
weight. So it's for me, it's more of bringing my best package to the fight. It's not. I mean, I know each person that you fight has a different style. They have different things that they bring to the table. But when it comes down to fight night, I still have to do my best of what I can do and not worry about who's going to step across the cage in a way. So the only thing that bothers me about it is that they waited till, they're waiting until December 18th for this hearing. They have to give them due process, which I agree with.
Right.
I mean, that's fine. But what's the point of having WADA testing if you're going to be able to appeal it and then fight? And might as well not do drug testing if you're just going to be able to appeal something and still fight with an adverse drug test. I could go. I mean, I guess I could go on and on about it. I'd love to have a new opponent
Yeah.
because I fought Gilpin twice this year. But also, when you think about it, fighting somebody who's had an adverse or failed test,
Mm.
whatever it may be, it's still that's why we do the drug
Yeah.
testing. Don't do the drug testing if you're going to just let people jump back in, regardless of what the results are. If you have an adverse test, that means something's not going on right, or that means you're trying to cover something up, or that means you're taking something that's covering whatever you were taking before that. Um, and the tainted supplement stuff, like if you know what you're taking, you know what you're taking. Like, I mean, you got to use reputable companies if you're going to take supplements or creatine or whatever the heck it is. It's like I understand that happens, but there was no talk of a tainted supplement. It was, whatever it is, that the test was flagged, and you know, and that was it. Like you can appeal it all you want, but I mean, we saw a different looking person from if you've watched his past fights. So
Mm.
the I mean, what am I going to do? Argue that he's not taking something? I mean, I'm not going to say he is taking something either, but I don't want to fight a guy who's had a flag drug test and then have to fight him 10 weeks after that because who knows? What if he appealed that and then is still taking whatever it is, and and it doesn't, it could still be like the whole picogram thing with Jones, like that shit could be in his system for 10 years and they could say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and now USADA's doing looser drug testing for just because of that
Mm-hmm.
situation. It's like this is a slippery slope that we're coming down, and
Yep.
with the whole drug testing in MMA, we already knew that was going to be a disaster from the beginning because everybody, like Nate Diaz said, everybody's taking steroids. So,
And I want to
but
ask, I want to ask you too, because are you gonna? I mean, sometimes the hearings there are public, but at least someone's always there live tweeting after. Are you gonna be closely watching that hearing on the 18th to, let's say he does get approved to fight you, just to kind of hear what their excuse is, what Nevada offers as the reason he tested positive, like just for your own understanding. And let's say it doesn't pass the smell test for you, but you do have to fight him. Do you have the ability to go to PFM like, whoa, I'm not comfortable with this fight. Like this fight doesn't really work for me. Are you allowed to say that, or you kind of just have to deal with it, whatever happens?
I mean, I'm down. I'm down for whatever. I'm a fighter through and through. Like I've been through adversity before. I understand the due process part of it, but I also disagree with the fact um, that if somebody's going to fail their test and you're still going to give them an opportunity to jump back in, like I don't understand where their head's at with it. Due process is always something. It's
Right.
like, but any other situation, you're guilty until proven innocent, and I don't see how you could be. The test is a test. Like the blood or the urine doesn't lie. Like, how are you? What are you gonna like? What's your? I don't know. Like, if I was going in there, what am I gonna say? Like, I wasn't taking whatever this was,
Mm-hmm.
or like what? What's he gonna do that's gonna overturn it? Um, but yeah, I mean, I've already not been happy with PFL about the way they've handled it because they haven't really been open with me about what the test result was, and
Wow.
it's not even in the media at all. And it just said, they had three other guys fail drug tests during the during the playoffs, and all those guys have stuff have their stuff online as through the media, but he doesn't.
Mm.
It's all kind of fishy to me from the beginning. So I'm just kind of taking it in stride, and whoever I have to fight on New Year's Eve, I'll fight. But I think, what's the point of the drug testing if they're not going to follow through with it?
If you were to face him, and let's say everything works out right, it's very clean, there's nothing for you to worry about, be concerned about, what makes him an interesting and even maybe a dangerous opponent for you? And, he had, like you mentioned, some good wins in the season, stuff like that. Hopefully it was clean wins, but, what makes fighting him interesting? Is it simply just not to fight Alex Gilpin a third time?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just a new challenge, a new, like, every time you fight somebody new, there's the motivation of like, man, this is cool. I never fought this guy. Like, it'll be cool to get in there and scrap. But also, when you think about it too, it's like Pineda's had the 6 wins after he was, on the lower level shows and stuff like that. But this kind of away from that a little bit, knowing that there was a flag, a flag drug test. Like, okay, well, all his wins are finishes, and that's great. Like, he's a finisher if he wins, but people forget the dude's got like 13 losses.
Yeah.
So it's like he can be finished. He can be submitted. He could be TKO'd. He could be knocked out. So a lot of people are taking that away. All they're showing is that, yeah, he's dangerous and he can put guys away. But when it comes down to it, he can break and he can give up too. And that's what I'm going to be there for if I do fight him.
If things don't change for Pineda and you do have to face Gilpin, is there a worry at all about motivation? Now, of course, you are a pro's pro. The money, the title are great motivations. But for a guy like you that has fought for this long, won titles, the challenge, you just said, the challenge of who you face is important, getting you energized for a fight, especially something new. This guy, as talented as he is, you beat him decisively twice already. I think it would be pretty human to have a lack of interest to do it a third time. And not even like a third time in 5 years. A third time in like less than 6 months. Like, is there any worry like, oh, God, how do I get up for this fight? Like, is that?
No, not at all. I think the thing for me is there's more motivation because I want to get a finish on this guy. I fought him twice. I know how tough he is. I know he'll hang in there. I know he can take some good shots. I know he's always going to be there and he's always going to fight back. He's always going to bring pressure. And I know that's how he is. It's similar to Siler, who I fought last year in the finals. That's a guy who you can never count out for 5 rounds. Like, I wasn't sure of my win until after the bell rang at the end of the 5th round last year, because that's a guy that we've seen him get rocked or get hurt and end up submitting a guy or knocking the guy out. So that's always something you can never count anyone out. And my motivation this time is, okay, I need to go out there and get the finish. I need to do what I haven't done to him yet, is finish him. So that's kind of my motivation for that. And I'm always looking to get the finish, but a lot of people don't realize that I'm not going to go out of my way and risk a win to put myself in position to finish. So if it's a decision, it's a decision, but better believe that I'm trying to get the finish out there.
If you were to win the $1 million again, do you feel there would be, the same drive to do it a third time? At 32, you are in prime years. Is fighting just about setting up your family and your future, like you mentioned earlier, at this point from here on out? Or with back-to-back championships, is there not much left for you to prove in the PFL featherweight division? Is there an interest if you can, have the ability to try out other leagues, the Bellator or the UFC? Are you allowed to get out of it if you're champion? Or even if you can't, is there maybe an interest going up to lightweight, like a new adventure, new journey by doing that? Or you're like, fuck it, I'm going to be 3-time. We're going to get these $3 million. Like, what is your, what do you think you might be feeling if you do it again?
Well, I feel like the way everything's going right now with my health and how I feel, and everything's healthy and doing well for me. I want to compete till at least 35. Okay. As long as everything's good and going well. But as far as have I felt like I've accomplished everything I want to? No, I feel like there's always more. And the UFC is coming to Columbus, Ohio in March. And my buddy Cody Garbrandt's going to be on that card. So that's something that's definitely interesting to me, but I know that the UFC isn't going to pay me what PFL's paying me. So that's the only, at this point, it's setting up my financial future. And that's my main goal. That's what I'm doing it. I love fighting, and I'm also doing it to set up my future. So if it doesn't align with setting me up financially for the rest of my life, then it probably doesn't make sense. So, I mean, we're in negotiation with a new deal with PFL, and we haven't gotten there yet. But my main focus is just to go out and get this win on December 31st, and then weigh my options from there. I mean, I'm a betting man, and if I have to bet on myself every time, I will. And I did that during the playoffs, and I'm willing to do that for the finals too.
Now let's say, and there's always back channels. We over here, like in other sports and free agency, especially now in baseball, there's back channels. Oh, they heard from somebody here or whatever. Like, let's say you through a back channel, you hear, okay, the UFC will give you what you think you deserve, and could you like confirm or not? Because you said you were in negotiations. I remember when I talked to Carlos Silva in season 1, he talked about that, like champions and I think runners ups are automatically signed on for season 2 or the next season. Is that the same with you, or as a runner up, or if you win the title, are you kind of automatically have to fight in PFL season 3, or is there some leeway where you have to renegotiate or have the ability to go fight elsewhere if you wanted to?
Well, technically, right now, I'm not in a contract with PFL for the future. So, like last year, you have to go through the regular season of the next year. And that was already accomplished. And we didn't sign a new deal in October. So, like, right now, I'm just, this is a one fight deal on New Year's Eve, basically. I'm doing that. And that's what I'm doing right now. But I have a feeling that, I feel like I've proved my worth with PFL. And I think that it's something that they would want to do, to work with me again next year and in the future, and other opportunities as far as, maybe commentating and things like that in the future when I am done fighting for them. But when it comes down to it right now, it's gotta make sense for me and my financial future. And, like what you're saying is the finalists automatically go into the next year. Yeah, you have the ability to. You're not obligated as a finalist, but
Okay.
The championship clause from last year was through this regular season, so that's done.
Okay.
And then, I think my manager does a really good job of not getting me stuck in something that doesn't make sense. So we're in a good place right now. I don't really think about it too much. I'm just focused on this fight right now, and then, I mean, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I wasn't excited that UFC is coming to Columbus.
I could tell. I could tell a little bit.
Financially, it wouldn't make sense for me, but to be, the thing with me fighting in the UFC, it's got to make sense financially, because they're not going to put me against some scrub. I'm going to be fighting in the top 10. They did that with Gaethje. They did that with Marlon Moraes, both guys who I was a champion with in World Series of Fighting. So those guys didn't get layups. They fought. He fought Alvarez and who else? He fought Alvarez, Michael Johnson. You name the top guys that Gaethje fought right out of the gate, and it's top 5 guys.
Yep.
So I wouldn't expect anything less, but I'd at least expect to get paid like one of those guys and get paid, what I'm worth. And I think that's kind of, where we may run into some stuff, because I'm getting paid really well for my regular season fights through PFL, but I feel like I'm worth a little bit more than what I am getting paid right now, and hopefully we can work that out with PFL.